Welcome to the Two Stewards Show. Epicureanism says that happiness can be found in a simple life free from fear and pain. Stoicism says that happiness can be found in a life aligned with reason and nature. The underlying assumption and common thread, of course, is that happiness can be found. Throughout millennia, many have tried in various ways to find happiness, and frequently they are saddened to discover that happiness cannot be found or discovered through any of those means. Rather, the striving to find happiness has led strivers on arduous mental journeys and arduous physical journeys to faraway countries to see if their philosophies pan out. Thus, the arc of history ensued. If only philosophers simply resigned themselves and submitted to the fact that it is much easier to pursue sadness in this life than happiness, the world may in fact be a much happier place. On that note, we want to know if the millions of immigrants to Canada think that they will find happiness here, or if they are indeed aligned with this new kind of philosophy and in search of sadness instead. Either way, our all-benevolent state will coddle them when they arrive. This time we talk Epicureanism, Stoicism, nihilism, feminism, cynicism, skepticism, and my favorite, no idea what I'm talking about-ism. As you can tell, I'm clearly out of my league here, and more. To the one listener who got in touch with the show, thanks. If you'd like to reach out, visit twostewards.ca. Remember, this show is not financial advice, but is valuable for listening amusement purposes. Now, the search for sadness never comes up empty-handed.
Foreign worker permit stats caught my eye the other day. And so we heard, Liberal government was going to at least put a pause on new immigrants, new foreign workers, all that kind of thing, right? And I think Ben Rabideau had said this as well, like we're going to have a net outflow of people just by virtue of people who are here when they're done.
When he was on last time, he was warning, I think that was a year ago, he was warning all the landlords around universities or these strip mall colleges, like, hey, you got good tenants now, you got a lot of rental demand, but that's going to go away, and it might actually be, we're seeing like outflows of people. So I think you're right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, good. All right.
So what we're seeing, though, cool site, immigrationstatistics.ca, and basically what they do is they...
Oh, that sounds very cool.
Okay. If you're a big nerd, cool site, which I am, so there you go. No, they take StatsCan and other stuff and put it into sort of useful format. So let me see if I can share the old screen here.
Useful as statistics can be, or
wow. Exactly. Okay, can you see that?
I can see that.
Okay, so approved applications and extensions for Canadian temp residents per origin country. So data available January 22 to 2025. So I started on the wrong one, but we can scroll up here. So it shows you, it's a combination of international mobility program, which is basically like anybody who comes here to work but is not under the LMIA program. And the LMIA program is the program where like, hey, we can't find any qualified Canadians. We really need an immigrant to do this job, right? Which is like I think we've had that for a long time, but it's been abused. So anyways, IMP, TFWP, so Temporary Foreign Worker Program, and study permit holders. And why study permit holders? They're obviously students. Well, because students can work, and they do, as we've seen. So the chart's been going around, and the total for 2025 is 3.1 million, but that's cumulative. So that's not new ones that were issued in 2025. That's the amount of folks in Canada that hold one of these permits. But still 3.1 million, right? That's, I don't know, something like 7-8% if we're at about 41 million. And then we, let's see, there's one that is permits granted. And so, here we go. 2025, 559,000. Now, there may be some overlap between like somebody was here on a foreign or a study permit and then they change it to a temporary foreign worker. So that may be a little bit lower, but it's not going to be material lower, I don't think. So just January to June 2025, 560,000 new people in the country on some kind of a permit. And then you see the numbers here, right? Where that's been. So 2015, it's been, 500,000 moving up. We got a dip in 2020, obviously, and then you get real crescendo 2023, 1.6 million, 1.46.
The glory days.
The glory days, 2024. And then we were going to stop it all. But like, you can't just turn off the taps, right? You've got permits underway, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, 560,000 this year. So that's, it's still a lot of new people coming in. And then if you look at where they're coming from, I found this one interesting. It's overwhelmingly India, 3.6 million. So this is January 2022 to 2025, and it's approved applications and extensions for Canadian temp residents per origin country. Oh. So basically people who got approval to come here from another country. The next highest is China, 1.1 million. Next highest, almost tied, is Ukraine with 1.1. So like Ukraine, you understand, right? There's a war, tons of refugees. And if you go through the years, you can see there's the bulk of those were like in 1 year. I think 2023 is 3 or 4. It was like 900.
Yeah, when things went crazy.
Yeah, so like you get it. China, we kind of understand that. We've talked a lot about that. But the one thing I was thinking was, why India? Right? Because like Pakistan is right next door. And they have 168,000 over that same time period versus 3.6 million. So the only thing I could come up with is like, that's where they're recruiting. And we've talked about the, people doing recruiting, and they're doing it in India. And yeah, there's a lot of, yeah.
Is there a legend for this chart that describes why exactly it's green at the bottom and it gets red at the top? Like
it's like the weather forecast, right?
Like, this is not good. This is getting worse. This is very bad. This is an emergency. I don't do they color that chart on purpose?
Yeah,
I can't hear myself through my headphones, so hopefully you're getting all this audio.
Yeah, I got you.
Wise words. All right, good.
Got your wise words. Anyway, so that's something like it's not a secret. I think we all knew, but just looking at the numbers, like, whoa, that's crazy, because I don't recall seeing like Chinese kids working at Tim Hortons, or Ukrainian kids for that matter, right? But certainly, you don't know where they're from, but obviously it's India. And I think it just ties back to the recruiting. Like, people have been actively recruiting in India, and it worked so well. They just everybody piled on. So anyways, that's, I thought that was interesting. Immigrationstatistics.ca. If you're really interested in that sort of thing, stop sharing.
One of those little things there that shows the actual births in Canada compared to all those, or?
No, I mean, we could look it up, but it's steadily falling, right? Fertility is dropping every year in Canada. So there's a fun little thing. I guess it's the start of football season. I'm seeing more stuff in my feed about like the miraculous things that this new quarterback did, and how poorly this team did. Do you have a favorite football team, Brent?
No, actually, I have no interest. So maybe we just lost a bunch of listeners, but I don't know. I don't watch sports. I don't know who has time to watch sports.
How can you not watch sports, Brent?
I don't know. I play sports and I do things, but I don't have a TV and I don't watch it. I don't know.
So this,
I'm a boring guy, I just say.
This got me on a tangent, right? And I guess probably what started it was our.
First of all, do you watch football?
No.
Is this a thing? Okay.
No, I have zero interest in it. right?
That's the one with the pointy shape.
Yeah,
on each
yeah,
side,
the
right?
pointy ball.
Yeah. All right. We're on the same. We're on the same page.
Now, listen,
now.
I
All
will
right.
say I played Australian football for like 20 plus years, right? Like obviously amateur. I'm not much of an athlete, but
In
I still
Canada.
showed up in Canada. Yeah. So the biggest league used to be the biggest league outside of Australia. I think the U.S. is bigger now, but interesting factoid for you there. But no, so at dinner, we were doing our like dinner time. We usually will do devotions around dinner, or at least do a little bit of a Bible study, right? So with the kids, and so we're reading through Acts, and we're at the part where Paul gets to Athens, and he's is the heart of Greek culture, and all the different philosophers and philosophies, and he's debating with them, and it mentions Stoicism and Epicureanism. So of course I'm like, okay, teachable moment. So let's talk about these two philosophies to the kids. And my youngest, who just turned 5, is like looking at me with slightly glazed eyes, right? And like, okay, I think it's time to wrap up. But it got me thinking along
You're
with the
just
football.
jumping any opportunity. Eh?
Oh yeah, these poor kids. No, it got me thinking. Like, what are the philosophies in our society, and are these still around? So thinking about with the football. So Epicureanism, I'll give you like the Coles notes. You can see people dropping off one by one, but basically happiness is the highest good, right? And not like extreme happiness. So hedonism is kind of an extension of that, right? Hedonism is like achieve pleasure at all costs. That's not what the Epicureans were about, and they get a bad rap for that sometimes. But it's contentment, right? Be content.
Simple living.
Yeah, but that is the highest purpose in life. So peace of mind, ataraxia. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but that's the Greek, and then absence of pain, aponia. And so some of the practical implications are, live simply, avoid excessive wealth and power. Friendship is really important. They were very much not into the supernatural, so you can talk about atomic materialism if you're really into that kind of thing. And like I mention this because all this has implications for Western society and the things that we believe, right? So Democritus was the fellow that was sort of quoted here in the Atomic Materialism, and he had the idea that there were like indivisible units that made up, that you couldn't see, but small units that made up everything. And it's where we get the idea of atoms, right? Now, as we know, they're divisible, and it makes a big bang if you do that. But anyway, sort of foundational science stuff, right? So yeah, moderation. The gods they exist. It's not atheism, but they're indifferent to humans. So don't fear death, because then your suffering is over, right? And so, yeah, you've got hedonism is sort of the extreme end of that, I guess. But I'm looking at it going like, this kind of describes our society, right? We've talked about sort of feminization, well, I have, of society, where safety is like the number one thing, right? And if you think about it, like, yeah, that's kind of where we're at, right? Like 0 days since workplace injuries. I'm not advocating for workplace injuries, but it's this extreme focus on zero, anything that could cause.
Yeah, as if that's the most important metric at all costs. And I think the at all costs is the question mark, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, if you've done, I don't know, if you've been in a workplace where you've had to deal with like the health and safety people, and if you're a health and safety person, sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
We threw them under the bus.
Yeah, that wasn't very safe. You had 0 days since last bus throwing incident.
Yeah.
No, but everything is oriented that way, right? You can't possibly have any injuries. You can't have any bullying. You can't have any hurt feelings. All this stuff, right? The avoidance of pain as the highest virtue. And then, you can get into the old man rant about like participation trophies and stuff, but you can't have your feelings hurt in, little league games or whatever. Everybody gets a trophy, right? As opposed to like, no, let's strive for and win something and build your character. So, and I'm just thinking like that so describes our society and the pursuit of pleasure. And this is sort of where the football thing comes in, right? Where we devote ourselves to the pursuit of pleasure, to leisure activities. And I'm thinking like, like, was it always like this? You know, I think back to Rome because always I do. And like, well, they had gladiators, right? And they had
I'm surprised you're not just thinking always in Rome and then you think occasionally about real life.
That might be accurate.
Oh, there goes my chariot. Oh no, that's not my chariot.
You know the meme where you got like the husband and wife lying in bed and she's thinking like, oh, he's probably like, you know, thinking of other women or this or that, and it's like the thought bubble. He's like, well, I wonder what they did in ancient Rome, like what kind of sandals they had. That's me. So yes, they did have distractions. They did have bread and circuses in Rome, but like that wasn't the major feature of life, right? You had people who supported like the Blues or the Greens chariot teams, but that wasn't like the primary thing. And I'm just thinking like all the devotion and energy that we put into sports, right? Football, basketball, baseball, hockey, and you know, soccer to a lesser extent. Like, what if we actually
soccer? I play soccer. They're just a bunch of wimps. They fall over.
Well, I mean, so I say that tongue in cheek because in North America, it's sort of, you know, the four big ones, but or three in the U.S. Without hockey, but like in the rest of the world, it's soccer. Right? Is the obsession. But what if like all of that energy went into something useful? I'm thinking like, what did they used to do? And I was thinking like, I made some notes here for once, right? Like, oh yeah, I remember like they had the Reformation and they had the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, scientific revolution, industrial revolution, and
the list goes on.
Well, if you look at sort of the great achievements of the West, liberal democracy is listed as one as well in some sources, and like that is really debatable whether that's an achievement or just a result. But anyways, like, can you think of great advances happening now? Like there are some people who are revolutionary and are, you could say, advancing technology or thought or whatever, but it's not like everybody is trained in this, right?
Yeah, when I look at that, I see the people who take risks and take action and stick their neck out are the ones that achieve stuff. And that they're also the ones who get burned too. So like if you see the stories of, you know, businesses crashing and burning, those are the people who took risks. And the people who were successful also took risks. So right now, like, I think the culture is fragile. Like there's almost, the result is now we have a lot of people who are just fragile, and things stagnate, right? If you don't take risks, you don't try and develop anything, you don't try and experiment, you don't try and, develop new technologies or make things better. You're always focused on like, mitigating risk and downplaying any possible side effect of whatever it is that you're doing, and then never trying to think about how could this be faster, cheaper, better, stronger, and how can I take a risk to do that? You're going to end up with a stagnating economy or a stagnating culture or any of that mix.
Yeah, and there's a place for mitigating risk, right? Like when we were talking to Rich Diaz a few times ago, the company IceCap Global Asset Management.
Yeah.
I'm getting it wrong, but anyway, so
are they importing people from India to make their ice caps? Or, Tim Hortons?
I don't think so. But like their focus is a lot of it is on risk management and like risk mitigation. And I'm like, well, that's a stupid way to manage a wealth portfolio. But I'm like, no, wait a minute. They're managing stuff for wealthy individuals. So these are people who have like taken the risks
already.
More. Yeah. You know, I'm making a generalization, but if you have a business owner, like they put everything, all their eggs in one basket, and they risked it all, and they probably fell and fell on their face and got back up, and they did it. So they've done the risk portion of it. And like, okay, then it makes sense to preserve the result of that risk taking. But yeah, you're right. We don't want to take risks anymore. And like where we're going with this is not great, right? You think of the foundations of our society. So we talked about some of the accomplishments, but it's like ancient Greece, ancient Rome, Judeo-Christian tradition. And so there's something I might take issue with, right? We say Judeo-Christian. Like, do we need the Judeo part? Well, I'm just thinking, like, it's what was the contribution of sort of Jewishness to Western society? I'm not like taking shots at them, but I'm like, why is it called that? So I have to delve into that, I guess. But like, I guess it's the idea you have sort of the Old Testament and the New Testament put together. But like, it's just, I would just say it's the Christian tradition, not the Judeo-Christian. So, you know, come at me for that one, I suppose. But no, I mean, whether you're atheist or not, you can't deny that Christianity has shaped, like along with ancient Greece, ancient Rome, has shaped Western civilization to the point where it is now. And, you know, so as we sort of move away from that, even though Epicureanism is an ancient Greek philosophy, right? We're sort of devolving, and you've got nihilism, I think, in there as well. Like there's a whole bunch of other philosophies that probably didn't have as much effect, and then other ones that did. So yeah, I mentioned hedonism, there's cynicism, skepticism. Those were sort of the big four, right? Stoicism, Epicureanism, cynicism, skepticism.
Did you talk about Stoicism? Like what?
No, I wanted to talk about that a little bit as well. So we're seeing some pushback, I think, against sort of this Epicureanism, and you know, you might characterize it as a little bit of feminization of society, in that we're trying to avoid risk at all costs, right? So that very protective, enveloping arms of the state, because primarily that's who must enforce safety, right?
Yeah, we're coddled and
yeah, as opposed to, you know, the idea of the state is to enforce property rights, which we should talk about that. But yeah, so Stoicism, the virtue is the only good. And I'll just quickly cover it, right? And the four main, so live virtuously. The four main virtues are wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. And then the idea is like live in harmony with the universe, because the universe is actually a divine creation governed by the logos, right? Which we know kind of as the word or divine reason. So if it was created with structure and with these virtues, if you live in accordance with those virtues, then like you're living in accordance with the universe, right? And so one of the values was, I'm paraphrasing, but like change what you can and sort of just deal with the rest. And I was thinking, like, where have I heard that?
That's accepting fate, right? Like it's just accepting how things happen.
It is. And I was thinking, again, of the sort of the Christian angle on this, because we're Christian, that's how we look at the world, right? And how Stoicism really is also sort of invading the Christian ethos or worldview. And to a certain extent, you can understand why. Like, yeah, live virtuously. Like, that's a good thing. Don't pursue pleasure or avoid pain at all costs. So you would gravitate towards this. But this is why I wanted to bring it up, because you sort of have to know the roots of things, and you need to know history a little bit to kind of see where we are and where we could be going. And it's a good way, I think, to frame the world and to make sense of the world and what's happening, right? If you have no reference point. And that's why, yeah, I was saying earlier, this is not the only way to look at things. Like we have a Stoic or an Epicurean filter. Like, no, but it's interesting when you take some of these things that have had such a profound effect on society, Western society, and then like filter things through that. You're like, oh yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. Sure. But you know the Serenity Prayer? It says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Right? So this is Alcoholics Anonymous uses this. And I'm like, whoa, that's Stoicism right there. Like almost word for word out of the Stoicism handbook. I don't think they have a handbook, but it's like, wow, it even has sort of infiltrated that. And, you know, I think it makes good sense. But yeah, when you're looking at a philosophy or looking at an organization, you need to know the roots. And so I think we see that with sort of the rise of masculinity, right? Like some of these toxically masculine guys like Andrew Tate and I don't know, I can't think of the others, but people are like, no, men got to be men. And that's obviously on the extreme, but you do see a lot of other people like, no, men have to embody courage and justice, and you should be like all these stoic virtues. And yeah, that's good, that's great, but that's not the Christian ethos, not the Christian worldview, right? The Apostle Paul writes about that. Did a study a little while ago on 1 and 2 Timothy, and the instructions that he gives to office bearers or aspiring office bearers, and all the qualities that he lists that men should be specifically if they want to be considered for office in the church. Like temperance, yeah, okay, there's one, not lovers of wine and so forth. But the rest is all like, gentle, not quick to anger, meek, all these things that were, I think, in direct opposition to Stoic philosophy at the time that Paul was trying to combat, saying like, these might be good things, but that's not, as a Christian, where you need to be. So when we talk about...
the way I understood those virtues is that like they're kind of the middle point between two extremes, and then you have like what's one of them here? What's one of their virtues? I forget them all.
Of Stoicism, so wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance.
Yeah, so temperance would be like, I don't know, self-control, but you can have like one extreme and then the other extreme, right? So you're like. If you find the common ground in between, that's supposedly where like you've achieved happiness or whatever.
You're not upsetting the balance of the universe, right?
But yeah, you're essentially Stoicism, like you're putting your hope in human effort still, right? Like somehow I'm going to achieve my I guess eternal well-being or salvation through my own efforts, and success or not of achieving this middle ground between all these virtues. And yeah, you don't rely on Christ whatsoever. So yeah, I don't know exactly where this fits in society, but like the Andrew Tate masculinity thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I would see that as one extreme, right?
Yeah. If you want to be a steward, if you want to be a good steward, that includes culture and society. And it starts in your family. So if you're a father, I mean, we're both fathers, so maybe there's mothers listening. Like whatever the case is, you need to model these things to your children, right? Because if we want to complain about society and be like, oh, it's terrible, like society's falling apart, like the way for it is not for us to say government has to fix it and they should pass a law that like, I don't know, you can't poop on the beach or something. Instead of bemoaning what society is, like embody that. And then if you have children, teach them, right? Raise them in the right ways. And that is like one of the best things you can do to steward culture, right? And whether you're a Christian or not, if you want to, the whole idea of stewardship maybe goes out the window a bit if you're not a Christian, but, like a lot of the guests that we've had on have sort of embodied these things and said like, basically I'm a cultural Christian, right? I don't actually have the discipline or the hardcore beliefs, but all the things that Christianity embodies are good. And that's what I want for my kids as well, right? You hear that. I see that too. Like people will be like, oh, I'll send my kids to vacation Bible camp or send them to church once in a while because it's good for them, right? And it's like, as a Christian, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's great. Good. Perfect. I hope they learned something, but it's not like, hopefully some of the good will rub off on them. That's not the point at all. But that's how a lot of people will look at it. Right. So anyways, that's kind of where it, to your point, I think where it ties into stewardship is stewarding culture. And because I complain a lot about we talk about immigration.
No, Mark, you don't complain.
Well, so that's all I do. Well, so I quoted some of these immigration numbers, right? And this has been getting a lot of press in Canada. It's something we need to talk about, right? Like, what happens when you take a lot of people from a different culture, so not from a Western culture, and you bring them into a different context, like into Western civilization, like not like they're living on a different planet or something, but like very different. They grew up with a different worldview, different context, but you bring a whole bunch of people and you plop them here and there's no assimilation, right? That's always been our model, is you bring in a trickle, they assimilate, acquire Western values, and then society works and holds together. When you just plop in millions of people who don't share that, like, you're going to have problems. And so what do you do at that point? Well, the government has to do this, the government has to do that. And the government should do some things. They should fix the mistakes they made. But ultimately, it's our job. It's grassroots that we have to do what we can, right, to address these things. If we don't like the values of the people around us, well, then talk to them and maybe try to change their values, right? That's sort of a crude way of saying it, but like, embody the values and, have lots of kids and teach them the same things.
So the thing there is, like, the Bible speaks of, all nations, all tribes, all languages, all peoples, right, being gathered.
Yeah.
And in a sense, like, the end time, there is this, there's harmony between all of these different things, even from all different time periods, right? Like, you think, like, how could I interact with someone from 2,000 years ago or whatever, right? Let alone from a different area of the world, different language. But we are all pictured in harmony because of our shared faith in Jesus Christ. So that is a beautiful picture. But then practically speaking, working that out, like, just even in everyday life, like, we live in a pretty diverse country. Like, there's a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. But is there a good way, quote unquote, to run society? Is there a better way to run society that, like, is Canada better than Ukraine or India or US, or like, and is there room in the world for like how do these things mix? What is a Christian to do in this context? And like, what do we have a right to stand up for certain things and say no to other things, and on what basis? And like, if we derive that from the Word of God, then like some of these social contexts, like, like you can't force your opinion on that. That becomes a little bit tricky, right? Because it's like, well, I believe this, but they have a completely different religion and they believe something completely different. And like, should we live in two different countries? Should we try to evangelize each other? Or like, how is this going to work out, right? And that's one religion, and another try and throw in like 5 or 6 or 10 different religions, and then some atheists, which is also a religion, and see where you end up, right?
So I would argue, like, I'm not the first one to make this argument, but
See, I wasn't ready for an argument. I was just asking you a question. I wanted an answer.
You ask a question, I give you an argument.
Picture.
Like, it's pretty simple when you say, is there a subjective difference or an objective difference, in the value between different cultures? And whereas 5 years ago, like, you couldn't even ask that question because you would be canceled, right? But now people are like, we're talking about this stuff, so let's talk about it.
We're pretty much canceled already, so I have too many.
We're canceled before we started. How could you put? And this ties into the whole like no pain thing, right? You could not possibly hurt somebody's feelings by saying that this culture or that culture is better than this one or that one. But my question is, like, where is all the immigration? Where are people moving from and to? And to me, that right there, that tells you
that's a vote.
Which culture? Yeah, it's a vote, and it's a vote by people from different cultures, right? Nobody wants to move to Somalia. No, and like, take your pick of countries. Everybody's moving away from different countries to the West, and I know this, like, if you're a purple-haired, like, college professor or university professor, you're probably like losing your mind at this, right? Like, this is ethnocentrism, this is white supremacy, and I'm not saying white. This isn't a code for white, but it's absolutely Western culture, as I've described it, right? Based on ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and then Christianity, again, even if you're not a Christian, you look at these things and you look at how Western society has developed and why it is the preeminent society or culture in the world. And like, again, a year ago, YouTube would immediately like cut this out, right? Cancel this, cancel the podcast just for saying that. But when you think about things like property rights, right? Respect for the individual, the idea that individuals have rights, they're all ideas that really sort of came out of the West. Like property rights, I'll grant you, are common in a lot of different cultures, but the way that the West has developed, especially individual rights, which has affected the rest of the world. And that's created a society that is high trust. We have laws. We have a culture that respects laws, where like that just doesn't exist in a lot of the world. And so, you say like, well, who are we to say that this is better, that's better? Like, I'm just saying we don't even have to say it. People say it by where they want to go. If you look at immigration patterns, like that tells...
I don't say it. Other people say it. I would never say it.
Exactly. Some people have said that we're the best culture ever. I didn't say that. Other people said it. Oh, man. Trump is just the gift that keeps on giving. I don't know. Okay, so I lost the rest of your question there. But I wanted to make that point.
Do we have a right to stand up for anything? Like, you obviously have firm convictions as Christian as to a walk of life and the different implications for all different areas of society. But like, to what extent do you kind of mind your own business and tolerate things, or do you impose your opinion on others, or do you or how do you see that playing out in these intermixing of different cultures? And I think I agree. Like, people voting with their feet, moving away from things that they are like violence, crime, is just one example. But like, cultures that have degraded, and I almost like we talked about the fourth turning, right? They always kind of go through these cycles, and things degrade, and then there's like a revival, and things are good for a time.
Well,
but people are moving away from
things aren't necessarily good for a time, right?
Oh.
No, but
I didn't read that chapter.
Yeah, you must have missed that part. No, there's the part where everything falls apart, and then there's sort of a rebirth, but it's not guaranteed that the rebirth is positive, right? You look at, I don't know, so you could look at Weimar Germany, right? That devolved, fell apart, and then, some people thought it was great. Other people were like, no, this is not good. But a new order emerges. Is it good or is it bad? And there's been plenty of times in history where it was bad. And then eventually that fell apart and a new society emerged.
We always find a way, despite having the hope for all eternity, we always find a way to paint this like whole world with a negative brush. I don't know.
It's hard when you zoom out not to, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's just the results of skepticism.
Worldly, earthly speaking, right?
But it is. I mean, every time you sort of zoom out, you look at things, and I don't know, I get depressed a little bit, right? There's reason for hope, but like if you put all your hope in this material world, like I don't know, I think you're going to be disappointed.
You can't do that.
And we consistently are. But no, I was going to get back to your point about can you say one culture is better than another? Like, a tribal warlord-oriented culture is not as good as a peaceful, law-abiding culture, right? And not like a passive culture, like almost like we have now, but one where you have strong men and women who will uphold the law and who will stand up for what's right and good. Like that society is a better place to live. And again, that's just... people have voted with their feet. But by our passivity, by our zero pain, zero hurt feelings, we're completely in danger of losing that. And you see that there's been a few poignant examples recently. So the one was the stabbing on the subway. So I don't know if people are familiar with that.
It's horrific.
Don't watch the video. But, if you have the chance, but this is some current events. I'm actually a little bit concerned for the states and what's going to happen there in terms of like racial violence, right? So you have this Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zutskaya, I think. I'm probably getting that wrong, but Irina was her name. Anyway, she's sitting on the subway, and this I was reflecting on this, and I was just thinking of Shakespeare, like it's a modern Shakespearean tragedy, I guess. She's sitting on the subway, and there's a fella behind her, and so I'm gonna bring race into this because like it's pertinent, and it's pertinent to like some of the concerns about what's going to happen in the U.S. as a result of some of this, and maybe this is overblown, right? Maybe I'm wrong, but anyways, there's a black guy behind her who is, unbeknownst to her, he's a 14-time felon. He's been released like many times, obviously, because he's not in jail, but a fellow who should be in jail, or at the very least in a mental institution. He should not be out on the street. Anyways, he gets up and just completely unprovoked, he's sitting behind her, stabs her, slashes her throat, I think, and then he walks off. And all the people around her, there's, I think, 5 people sitting close to her who saw this. And, maybe they didn't understand the severity of the situation. I don't know, but she's like clutching at herself, fell down. There's like a lot of blood all over. They all got up and left. Not one of them helped her. And so they all were also black. And I'm not saying this is like, this is a characteristic of black people or black culture. Maybe if it had been white people, they would have done the same thing. But the fact is, all the people around her just left. She's sitting there like dying, and nobody even stopped to see if she was okay or to help her. And then, minutes later, someone sort of from the front of the subway who couldn't see this but realized something was up, ran over, and the guy takes his shirt off and tries to stop the bleeding. And, to add to that, this guy was, I think was white. So you just have this juxtaposition of races, and the looking into the guy's history, the attacker, right, 14-time felon, had been released many times, the latest by an aggressively pro-DEI magistrate who was put forward for her position by a very aggressively DEI law clerk. And so you just see like the seeds of chaos being sown. And this is one example, but you see this so often across the U.S., especially in democratically ruled urban strongholds. And you can just see like the seething resentment that's bubbling up. So just today, Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative commentator who was on a college tour, was shot in an attempted assassination. And apparently he is still alive, which is a bit of a miracle considering the shot he took. But it's just going to, like, there's already people sort of up in arms over the subway stabbing. Not only just the stabbing, but the fact that mainstream media is just not covering it, like zero coverage. And they're like, hey, you covered George Floyd. What about this? With the obvious implication, like you'll look at things racially in one context, but not in another. You refer to it as a killing, and the immediate headlines were like, oh no, this is terrible because it could cause people to have like racial misgivings, right? Not like, oh, this is terrible because somebody was killed. Like, no, what are the implications of this, right? So, there's just more hate for the mainstream media. Black Lives Matters released a video in which the speaker said oppressed people have a right to violence. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm no PR guy, but I don't think that's the best move here. But like, maybe it is, right? There's been a growing movement among black people to say that like violence against whites is fine. And I'm not saying that's every black person in the US. But it's been said so many times, you can't ignore it. And it's the logical outflowing of these aggressive DEI policies of Black Lives Matter, of these organizations. And it's just, you add to that the Charlie Kirk shooting, because he talked about these issues very frankly, and he was conservative, and leftists, people on the left side of the spectrum hated him. And like you've got I don't know, a cauldron. I don't know what the analogy is here, but like it's at boiling point, I think, in the States, and it's not good.
Oh man. Well, there's the hope right there. I like you gotta yeah, I don't know what to say. You gotta find different news articles. That's very sad, and yeah, I guess our hearts go out to these people, but
Yeah,
yeah, we don't know what Charlie Kirk's gonna end up doing if it's just happened today, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any takeaways from that at this point. Like,
Well, I think the takeaway is number one, the culture has to change. Like very clearly, we're sort of in the throes, and I mean, you know, looking sort of objectively, like you can expect more of this kind of thing to happen if you believe that there's these cycles of history, right?
and it also, like you mentioned, Black Lives Matter, like organizations, philosophies along these lines, like are inciting behaviors,
Yeah.
then and encouraging it, then maybe more people will vote with their feet.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're seeing the sort of outflow from Canada and especially Canada, but I would imagine the U.S. as well, of sort of the more wealthier, like the people who are able to are leaving, and it's it's not a surprise. So again, what do
So
you do, right? And
yeah, so I have the culture making book from Andy Crouch. Again, he's a Christian author, and I think I mentioned it before. This book, and he says the only way to change culture is to create more of it. Because I guess we as Christians have this tendency to kind of avoid culture, not participate in culture, or just in certain parts of it, but never like create our own. And whatever his argument is that like Christianity, when it's he called it's disembodied Christianity, if you're not actually like doing anything in culture, not actually creating anything.
right,
So you can have all these ideas and thoughts in your head, and you can think things culturally, right? And then we talk about culture as if it's this concept, but he says no, it's actually very practical, and there's really real, tangible ways that we can actually put into practice our beliefs and have a great impact and effect on people around us, culture around us, or I guess that's using the word in the definition, and society around us,
yeah,
right? So what does that actually look like? Well, he kind of goes through the book of different ways it could look, but yeah, what can we do to change it?
yeah. Well, I think it goes back to like you start
What's this
start with
dog's
yourself.
name again?
Oh, I don't know.
Lost?
There's two of them now, and one learns from the other. So if you can hear that, that's the dogs going. It's my first of all, install a good alarm system in your home. And
Yeah, you're you're obeying the God's first command, right? Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue.
well, yeah, not with dogs though. I don't think it was with dogs. Anyways, they help first line of defense to protect my children. No, but it starts with you, right? We always are looking like, oh, like I said, the government should do something. No, it starts with you. So you have to work on those values yourself, embody those values, and then again, strongly encourage people to have children and then pass those values on to them. But, if you don't, and that's not the only thing, right? You pass those values on to people you work with, people in your neighborhood, right? Get to know your neighbors, right? Just, it doesn't have to be a huge thing, right? If everybody
Yeah,
did that, and I know this is like if everybody just planted one tree, we'd have lots, and not everybody's going to do it, but like really that is the answer. It's grassroots. It's not demand. Maybe you want to demand action from your government. Maybe you want to put up
yeah,
a billboard, right? Yeah, I don't know if you saw this. The so ARPA, the what is it? Association for Reform Political
association.
Action. So
Yeah,
they had some billboards up. Let Kids Be, or letkidsbe.ca, and so this is I'm just looking at it here. Stop medical transitions for minors. So of course they've got a few billboards, and of course, the city of Hamilton, losing their mind, has ordered them to take it down. this is being challenged now as a constitutional thing, constitutional matter. So we'll see where that goes. Like, we have the right to free speech and to say things, but when they're saying, well, it's hateful, it's anti-trans. And again, that goes a little bit back to, like, we could never let anybody have any discomfort, right? And especially that means trans people, right? You cannot.
Well, and when you mention discomfort, what pops into my mind is like the art of creating culture. It's almost like cultivation, or this goes back to the masculinity, but husbandry, like going out into the earth and facing the thorns and thistles, and actually, like you mentioned, talking to your neighbors. Like, wow, it's simple, but it's also hard, right? Like, if you don't know them or whatever, you're like, but you just simply go over there. And like a lot of these, like the race things you mentioned with the stabbings and shooting, like some of it is mental illness. Maybe there's some things where you could say, but a lot of it is just not understanding, like, did they ever have a conversation? Are they actually so different than they thought they were? And like, if they did have a conversation, would there be a way that they could work out like what each person, like, listen to each other, understand? But those things take time and effort and mental energy, emotional energy. Like, you come out at the end of the day, maybe, you're thankful for it 4 years down the road when something happens. But like in the moment, it's like, this is draining. This is a lot of work. And, that's what Christians are called to. And I think the act of culture making is that. And frankly, the act of stewardship, right? Like, we kind of focus on stewardship, being a good steward. You can't opt out of that, right? I think we talked about that with buddies. Were they from North Carolina? Anyways, they said too, yeah, like, as a Christian, you can't just opt out and say, well, like, God's given me all these resources, time, talents, neighbors, friends, like all kinds of connections, a platform to talk to people, and like, yeah, I don't feel like I don't have the time for this, or like I don't have the energy to do it, and like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, not every day you have to be going 110%, but like, God wants you to use what He has given you, well, right, to the best of your ability.
Somebody asked after, I think, our last pod, like,
it's His kingdom, right? Like, He wants you to advance His kingdom.
Yeah,
that's who we serve. Yeah. We don't serve ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody asked, like, do you have to actively seek, conversion opportunities or whatever, right? Like, can it just happen organically? And so, like, I think it's sort of a yes and. So these things that you're describing, right? There's practical implications in that if you go to get to know all your neighbors, you're going to have probably a better little, like, microcosm of society, right? And like, we do, because we know the neighbors who want to talk to us anyways. No, but it's generally rewarding, right? And like, they know what we believe and what we stand for, and some people like it, some people don't, but like, we get along and everybody's respectful, and like, we have a decent little part of our neighborhood where people get along, and they know, like, if my kids go here or there, they're safe, and or at least they should, maybe not from physical harm, but because they can get a little wild. But it makes it a better place. And then as a Christian, I think of it as sort of as luck, right? You look at, someone has said that, like, luck doesn't exist. It's the result of what is it? Opportunity and
preparedness.
Preparedness and opportunity. That where they intersect. That's luck. So when you look at people who are successful business people, a lot of them will say, like, it was luck that my business did really well, but it wasn't really luck. Right? They were prepared, and then an opportunity came along. They were able to take advantage of that opportunity. And like, that's, I think if you're talking about sort of Christian witness or whatever you want to call it, it's the same thing, right? Be prepared. So know your Bible, know your scripture. And, to anybody who's a Christian that's listening, who is a big sports fan, like, this is my caution to them when I'm talking to people like this, is like, do you know your Bible as well as your favorite sports team? Right? Like, what is your motivation and what is your knowledge? So you may, I was thinking about like what really matters and where's our heart and where do we put our things? And I'm thinking, like, if you're a professional engineer, for example, you may know more about engineering than the Bible, for example, because if you're spending 8 years a day, 20, 30 years, like, you're going to have quite a lot of knowledge, and you're not going to spend that time reading your Bible. But if you think about your leisure time, if you know all the stats of everybody on the Leafs or whatever your favorite team is, like maybe you're just really good at memorizing that stuff, but like, do you know your Bible? And if you don't, then it's like, maybe there's a disconnect. So number one is you have to prepare yourself to have these conversations. You have to have some knowledge, right? You don't have to be like the smartest, most knowledgeable person to talk to anybody but Jesus, but you have to have some preparation. And then, seek out opportunities, right? We talked about street preaching last time. Like, if you want to do that, it's fine. That's not my style. But certainly you have opportunities with your neighbors or with whoever, right? These things will come up if you sort of look for the situations, or at least just look to get to know people and treat them well. So that's so that's sort of my answer to the, do you have to actively look for things? Like, keep your eyes out. You don't have to every day be looking and trying to hand a pamphlet to somebody, but like eventually they will come if you're prepared and if you're keeping your eyes open.
Yeah. Well, the key thing I got out of that was that we have a listener who asked a question. So that's pretty cool. It's rare.
A viewer, actually, YouTube. I didn't know people actually like watch YouTube in a long form, a very long, boring form content, but apparently they do. So, hey, that's cool. I don't have the attention span anymore. But anyway, so there's that. So yeah, my conclusion is like, work on yourself, work on your kids, work on your circle of influence, and that's the start. And then like ARPA, there's room for political action, there's room for other stuff, but prepare yourself first, I guess.
Yeah,
and buy a dog or two, so you know when your house is being invaded.
And if you have any time left, then you can play football, or
well, make sure you read your Bible, then you can watch the Leafs game.
Yeah, it's like God gave us sports too, Mark. What are you doing?
We're
going to get a lot of negative press.
Yeah, I tell you, bring it. Let's get a sports fan on here.
Well, yeah. So to go in a bit of a different direction, next time we're going to talk to Tim Fox, Lord willing, and he's going to be talking about Bitcoin. From a Christian perspective, I'm really excited for this conversation, and it's another angle to stewardship that I think, is really important in our present day. You mentioned like the cultural things that are in upheaval in our world in the U.S.
Yeah.
You mentioned like just it's just like a bomb that could go off, but I think technologically speaking, there's a lot of change in our world. Stewarding through that is going to be interesting. Like AI is one thing. We want to kind of delve into a little bit more, but Bitcoin, stable coins, cryptocurrencies, like that whole world is a complete, crazy, fast-paced, changing thing as well. And I'd love to get Tim's thoughts on it. So I'm really looking forward to that talk.
Okay, there's your teaser, folks.
Teaser. Hopefully it comes on, eh?
Yeah, if he doesn't, like, we're going to have to fake it.
He's going to hear this one and be like,
AI version.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we should wrap it up. I got to go see who's invaded my home. And, we'll catch you on the next one. So until next time,
steward your wealth wisely. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Two Stewards Show. If you like my voice better, click subscribe.
If you like my voice better, click share.
If you like both, give us a 5-star rating.
To learn more about the show, head on over to twostewards.ca and explore our free resources. To interact with the show, feel free to reach out at hello@twostewards.ca.
We will see you in the next episode. In the meantime, steward your wealth wisely.
Nailed it.